So as of our recording today, September 16th of 2024, I'm a buyer. I am a buyer right now. I do see as we're in a climate that we're starting to tick down in interest rates, and I do think there is a lot more reasonableness on the side of sellers right now to go from zero to that fourplex, to go from the fourplex into the 53 unit and above. Every single time I apply this idea of what is the absolute worst case scenario. I don't want to think through the 347 gonna happen problems, because if you're signing up to be a property investor or an entrepreneur, you are signing up to solve problems.
Multifamily queen, and she has a very unique approach to acquire multifamily. So I have been doing syndication for many years, but Mandy has a specific formula that shows you how to increase your wealth acquiring multifamily with syndication. So I could not stop asking myself, how does she do this? And today I'm bringing her to our show to share her secret formula. So Mandy, welcome.
Oh, hi, Jen. I'm so excited to be here. Just lady multifamily investors unite.
Yes. Don't we love it, multifamily? I mean,
Absolutely.
we are very passionate about. And in fact, I'm very excited because I know that you have a very unique approach on how people can increase their wealth, acquire multifamily. There's a lot of great classes out there with people teaching how to get multifamily, but your approach is very unique. It's very practical, and I think it gives people hope that it's very doable, and you have some great strategies that you share with people. So, can you tell us what's coming for you for the multifamily world?
Yeah, sure. Having bought my way out of my W-2, having bought multifamily, small multifamily, 4 to 50-ish units, I think that, when you hear multifamily and you seek out the, people who teach that, they really push you down the road of syndication. And what I wanted was a floor of income. And I was in love with the scale that multifamily brought. I was in love with the loan products that I could get with multifamily, but I didn't love the idea of needing to sell off 70% of my hard work. And I didn't love the idea of, needing to sell it in 3 or 5 years, because that tends to be an expectation of passive investors. So what I was able to do is build that floor of income with a few partners with the same attitude of, we're going to buy it and we're going to watch the market and we're going to see where it goes. But our intent is to write it for cash flow. So I've, put all that stuff together because it was so powerful for me into something where, people can actually pick my brain. So excited for that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, you take your W-2 and you say, I don't want to do this anymore for X or Y reason. And you go and invest, start investing in multifamily, learning about it. I'm guessing that you took some time to learn how to invest in multifamily, and you go and start acquiring these multifamily with a specific partners in order for you to build your wealth. How is that process for you when you retire from your corporate job and then you go into the multifamily investing? What was that journey?
Mhm. So I kind of followed the money in my whole career, right? So I was a trader for a little bit, and then I was medical device sales, and I knew I wanted freedom through money. And in college, I met somebody who owned a rental property, and I thought, oh my God, and you get to keep that money that's left over. That's the best idea I've ever heard in my whole life, right? So while I did all of the podcasts and all of the listening and all of the learning, I didn't really do anything with that knowledge until, I was 35 years old and I bought a fourplex. So it just so happens that my first acquisition for express purpose of investment was multifamily, small multi. And I realized, oh my gosh, one acquisition and I now have four doors that if, somebody moves out, then I'm not 100% vacant. That feels so much safer. How do I put a zero behind this? Because when I didn't, die and be homeless and penniless under a bridge with, my son from that fourplex, I had $1,200 a month, $1,000 a month coming in, depending on the month. So how do I really lean into this? Because it's weird in sales. You have a really good sales year, you make a real great commission check. Then the next year it just becomes increasingly hard to hit that number. So rather than, doubling down and doubling the size of my territory to chase my tail for the same amount of money, I realized like this is the thing that's worth putting my efforts into, because once I close a building, then I don't give back any of that money. I get to keep it as a floor of income and continue to grow on top of it. So I just did the math problem of how much do I need to not need a W-2. And then I just chased that number until I hit it, which happened way faster than I thought was possible. Which, again, like I think if you can't hit a fuzzy target, if you're trying to hit any target, you got to get a lot of clarity. And having done that math, it was like the perfect truth to put to the problem.
I love that. Numbers. Numbers are key. And you take these numbers for you, you reverse engineer, you look backward and it says, this is how much money I need to make in order to leave out of my passive investment. So that transition in there, you figure out, you take what you learn and finally you implement it. And you get to this point. However, there's something that trigger your desire to invest in multifamily. It looks you have a entrepreneur heart, and in the process, you find out that real estate was that potential vehicle for you to build the wealth and lifestyle that you want. Before we jump to the lifestyle, what triggered that desire to get passive investing or passive investment?
So I think I always had entrepreneurship in my bones. My dad is a farmer. My mom owned a manufacturing company as a kid. So it just always made sense to chase working for yourself. And also, with the farming background, to chase hard assets. Because my master's degree is in economics, and this idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like you can live your entire life, Jen, and never own a Bitcoin. Did you know that? You cannot live your entire life without a roof over your head. So when I'm looking for something that is, an obvious need in the world that I can provide and fill that need in a really appropriate, responsible way, providing good, clean housing is the way to do it. If you're looking at the math of how many times do I have to be right to hit that floor of income I need to see if I'm doing single family homes, you might have to be right like 300 times if you're doing single family homes. And you've always got to do a deal. You've always got to be hustling. You've always got to hustle, hustle, hustle. And I didn't want to be on call. That's why I didn't go to medical school. And I ended up on call with medical device sales, right? So how do I lean out of the hustle and into the attraction and into the just like the flow of good energy, so that I get to be the mom who shows up for my kid and gets to go on all of his field trips with him. So, I realized pretty quickly that if I chase 50-ish unit buildings, I don't have to be right 300 times. I just need to be right like twice. And then my entire floor of income is provided for, and I get to go live that life of my dreams.
I love it. In fact, I think that you nail it. Multifamily, it's so famous and everyone wants to own multifamily because people have recognized the value of how this specific asset type can accelerate your journey towards financial freedom. And I started with also duplexes. That was my first deal too. I have done single family as you mentioned too, and you nail it. There's this little system that allows you to accelerate your path, and that's what you have done in a very short period of time. So tell us about that journey as an investor.
So after doing the 4 and a 6 and an 18, like it started to feel real comfortable, that kind of super small multifamily, right? It was something that I could absolutely do and no problem, but I really wanted agency debt loans. So if you haven't heard of agency debt loans, it's a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac back. So the agencies that do the smaller loans, they back investment grade stuff. And long story short, it's incredible terms. It's great long amortization, 30-year amortization. I've gotten up to a 12-year term. The rates are really competitive. And the best part is that it's non-recourse. Because, when I wanted to start adding a zero, I started paying attention to the people who had tremendous failure. So how do I not do that? How do I not be that guy who lost $50 million? And if you look at that guy who lost $50 million, he did it because he put the wrong debt. on that property, right? Debt that readjusted at an inopportune time. And that's what a lot of people who are feeling a lot of pain are feeling right now, right? So how do I lean into this agency debt, which is non-recourse, incredible terms, and for the long term, which is my ultimate goal? And I couldn't do that after just the 4 and the 6 and the 18, right? So what I did is I found partners who had the same goals as I did, who had the same intent and the same heart and the same work ethic as me. Because Jen, I have been famously wrong with partnerships, but I've been so incredibly right with partnerships too. So I knew the goal that I had was to get something on this agency debt that was a Class B, that was that we could afford a manager, that would be in the Indianapolis MSA, because I could get there and back before dinner, and it met all of the growth criteria I needed to see. So I found those partners, and we ended up taking down a 53 unit as the first larger on agency debt deal that I've done. And now we just watch it grow every single month.
You point something pretty important for any kind of real estate asset. When you're doing the acquisition, you know it. You have to buy right. But I think that a lot of investors focus so much in the potential of earning that they forgot to look at the fundamentals of investing. You have to buy right, and you have to have the right financing, and you nail it. So what has been your approach during these times? Because I know interest rates went crazy. As you mentioned, there's a lot of people that they are devastated because they're losing a lot of money because they miss the fundamentals of investing. Buy right, get the right financing in place, and get the right partners, because you and I know that that can shift any deal. So we'll tap into the partnership in a second. So tell me about your strategy on financing, and what are you expecting that is going to happen in the market? Are you going to go buy more real estate and multifamily? Are you going to hold off? Because I think that's a big question for a lot of experienced investors and people starting investing too.
So as of our recording today, September 16th of 2024, I'm a buyer. I am a buyer right now. I do see, as we're in a climate that we're starting to tick down in interest rates, and I do think there is a lot more reasonableness on the side of sellers right now. And to be very clear, my end game is now and will always be these mid-sized multifamily on agency debt that I own by myself or with just a few partners. That being said, because I don't have to be right 300 times, as we've discussed, I need to be right 3 or 4 times. My goal is to be right 2 more times in the 12 years until my husband retires from teaching, right? So as an example, the 53 unit that we own, it throws off that one deal, throws off $18,000 of cash flow a month. So if I do one more of those deals, I go buy my jet and I ride into the sunset, right? So I don't feel tremendous pressure to be going to do a deal every minute of every day, like some of my syndicating counterparts. Actually, when I decided I wanted to really dig into multifamily to try to leave my W-2, I talked to a friend who was also in medical device, who we both had healthy salaries. And I asked him, like, how do you know? What are you looking for? What do you need to see to be willing to leave your W-2? And he said, all I got to do is this deal and that deal, and I get that acquisition fee and that disposition fee. And all I got to do is 4 deals a year. And I thought, oh my God, what if there aren't 4 doable deals? How are you going to feed your kids? What are you going to do? Right. So this opportunity to really just lean on the floor of income of something that's more stable and more wholly owned by you is an approach that gives me a ton of comfort. Right. So right now, for the past couple of years, I've been leaning into what I've got and asking myself the question, how do I do more with what I've got? And for instance, that sixplex, that was the second deal I ever bought. I realized that I could reposition some of them as midterm rentals because it's right next to a hospital, right? So rather than buying, how do I do more with what I got is the thing I've been doing for the past year.
You know your end goal, you have a strategy. I think that a lot of investors during these days get so blinded by the shiny objects that they want to go everywhere without being focused. And one of the hardest lessons for me was you need to be focused in order to be successful, or you're not going to be accelerating that success. So I love the fact that you have your strategy, you select your asset type, you feel very comfortable, and you have a plan. And through this process, you find the right partners. And I think that in the process of learning with having multiple partners in the world of syndication, I have learned a lot on how to put together partnership from many perspectives. I love the fact that you talk about values, you talk about having same goals or having a pretty specific target that can help them. So I'm a new investor, right? Let's assume that I'm a new investor and you want to give me some advice on what I should be looking for in partnerships.
Mm. One thing that I do very differently, having learned very expensive, very difficult lessons, is, I do a background check on everyone. The short story is a man I knew from my church stole $110,000 from me. So if I would have done a background search on this man, I would have seen that he had been a creep to tons and tons of other people, had tons of liens against him, right? So that is thing number one. Then once you do that, even if you have an incredible person in front of you and no real results, you might be able to see that, Jen, let's say that you had a 10-mile over the limit speeding ticket in 1998. I can now come to you and say, hey, Jen, what's up with this speeding ticket in 1998? And I get to see how you actually respond to a really difficult question, potentially embarrassing question, right? Because our communication, and I can tell you all day long that I'm great at communicating in hard conversations. But if I manufacture that hard conversation in a polite kind of, kind way, then I get to see the rubber hit the road. I'll say also a subsequent lesson that I've learned is, a partner that I had on a deal, and I differed greatly in terms of how we were going to manage it. I believe firmly that you cannot manage what you do not measure. And this very kind woman just kind of did just the next thing that was in front of her and felt very much like her hair was on fire sometimes, And I now know that if we aren't on the same page of the things that we're going to measure, this is not a relationship that's going to work for me.
Yeah. I love that too. It's establishing that criteria when you're doing your partnership. And it's a hard lesson because sometimes we like someone and that person is not a bad person. They might not have any background, but as you mentioned, they just run it like nothing. They don't focus on results. And then you ended with a mediocre deal that could have been the best deal ever. And I have gone through that. I have lost money too in the process of struggling with partners, which is pretty interesting because what was my biggest weakness selecting partners in real estate became my strongest portion now, right? Where I have to bring really quality people that know what they're doing, Mandy. And I love how you approach this. They have to be measures. They have to be statistics that tells you how you are doing in your performance. And I think that's why you have been successful in this process of taking it slow, but accelerating your wealth. I love that and how you have put that together. Now let's go back to the portion of partnerships in regards to your personal life. And I'm gonna get personal now because she's like, one of the important things for women, for us, is to have a partner that support us. And I guess that for the other counterpart too, how having a strong partnership with your romantic relationship or your personal relationships have helped you succeed in this process?
Oh, this is a doozy. I mean, I've been divorced and I'm now remarried. And my ex-husband is a good man. And this just was outside the scope of what he felt was safe. And I now looking back can just meet him where he's at and completely understand that his fears were kind of projected onto me. And the things that he told me that I couldn't do were just because he didn't know any better. Long story short, I don't know that had I not been able to work through that relationship, that I would have taken off in the way that I did. I'm not about to say that if you feel you're being held back or your whatever next step is being held back by your partner, that you can't enroll your partner. That was not in that relationship the experience that I had. Very good man, zero interest in real estate, kind of a little scared of it, right? And then moving forward into the life of an entrepreneur, like I knew myself better, right? I didn't show up as full on entrepreneur wanting to chase these dreams when I had first met my ex-husband. So he didn't realize that that was coming, right? But in this new relationship where I feel fully lifted up and supported in the things that I'm doing, it's solely because I knew myself better when I got into the relationship, right? So I feel like selection is incredibly key, and it's not good or bad. It's just what is right for you.
Yes, for sure. It's finding yourself first and bringing the authentic self so you can attract the right partner that will help you succeed in life in different areas. And I think that as women, sometimes we struggle when we're going through that journey. And I have been there where my past partner, it didn't work because of the same reasons. The need for certainty was completely different than me. Like, I love uncertainty. I love to have adventures and take measure risks is how I call it. But I like the risk, and that allows me to do my best. And in that process, we find ourselves and we get better. And I think that we go through many struggle as women in this entrepreneurship world, that we sometimes forget all of these challenges we have overcome, from personal relationships to personal struggles to communities. And I always have these concept that we are influenced by very strong women, and one of them is our mothers. And how did your mother influence you in this journey, right? You come from a small town, you go and do all of these adventures and decide to take these risks, right? So tell me about that journey. What do you learn from your mom?
So a thing I know for sure is that kids aren't going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do what they see you doing, right? And my mom left a really safe medical technologist job in her early 40s to go build a business, right? Right, wrong, and different, whatever it was, the audacious bet on herself is something that was made my life easier because I wanted to take an audacious bet on myself. So now that I am a mother, now that I get to be, not only mom but bonus mom to two additional kids, I live my life in such a way that I want them to be proud of how I approached it. That I want them to be willing to chase their dreams. And when I need to be away or need to put in an extra underwriting rep or whatever thing I need to be doing, it's not mom guilt so much as it is a remembrance that I'm showing up, teaching them how to chase their own dreams. It's a real subtle reframe, but it's so incredibly important because we as mothers set the tone for what will happen in our kids' lives. I so firmly believe that.
Yes, we change the future of the world, that's for sure. We shape the world, and I think that sometimes we miss that. So example, role models is what they're looking for. Now, from other perspective, you and I know that we can never make it in our by ourselves, right? Doesn't matter how many people say I'm a self-millionaire, a self-billionaire. I think that there's many people that influence and also help us challenge ourselves from what we used to be. Is there any kind of communities or people that have shifted the way that you were doing business, the way that you were shaping your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so much if you get around people doing the things that you're doing. I actually say this to my bonus daughter all the time, that the people you hang around is what determines what normal looks like to you. So if you're hanging around people who binge watch Netflix, that will look normal and you're probably going to binge watch Netflix. If you're hanging around women who are building multi-million dollar businesses, that's going to look normal and you're probably going to do the same. And in the case of trying to speak life into the 14-year-old, if you're hanging around kids that are vaping, that's going to look normal and you're probably going to want to try it. And it's probably not a great choice if you're choosing to spend your time around. So, I first got around, I started a meetup in multifamily in Chicago when I was first interested because I felt crazy. And actually, I don't know if you've read the book, uh, Jamie Kern Lima's Worthy, but one thing that she says in it that I just feel all the time now is that you're not crazy, you're just first. I feel crazy buying apartment buildings coming from a town of 800 people because I'm not crazy. I'm just the first one to have done it. And then, riding into this scale of my life, this wanting to kind of 10x all of the things, my relationships, my body, my investment, I found a group called GoBundance. and having the opportunity to be around people who, are unapologetic in showing up as the best mother they can be, showing up as the most connected relationship they can be, wanting to, go from a $10 million net worth to a $100 million net worth. I don't want someone to say, ooh, must be nice. I want to high five that woman for wanting to grow into that $100 million net worth. And that is the home that I found at GoBundance Women. And actually, when I was able to buy my way out of my W-2, I had this space where they wanted to make it for women by women. And now I have the opportunity to serve as one of the leaders of that organization because I believe in it so much.
Oh, strong, strong communities, especially for women, help us shape. I always have this saying, I always say sometimes we have to borrow someone else's confidence in ourselves. And sometimes that confidence comes from these communities that believe so much in you that there's no way for you to fail. And when I say that is normally as women, we do the best we can for ourselves, but when there's someone else, we tend to do our best. And that's what it pushes to be more bold, to bring all of that female energy and say, I'm gonna do this, believe it in myself or not. So it looks like that community has been that powerful for you. So
Absolutely. I feel like
that,
you're giving two arms for a reason, right? One to pull yourself up, but one to pull other people up with you. And just like you said, women tend to not show up for themselves or put themselves at the front of the room in the same way our male counterparts tend to. So if you're there expecting the accountability from one of your girls, you're not going to let her down, even if you would
yep.
be willing to let yourself down.
And it's that powerful moment that we say, let's grow, let's go crazy together. Call me crazy, right? But I'm a
Yeah.
doer. I will be the first. I
I want
love
to high
that.
five you when you get to $100 million net worth.
Well, we're close, Mandy.
Love it.
That's the next stepping stone
Love
for our syndications now. So as I think that for us it's pretty interesting because I started investing and acquiring on my own, and then I run out of money, which I think it happens to all
it.
the investors, and then I run out of credit because then you get all of these properties under your credit and you learn many financial strategies. And at some point I say, I want to grow up and I want to do syndications, but also I want to invest with other syndicators too. And I have learned so much from what other syndicators do well and don't do well, right?
Mhm.
And it has been an entire experience for me, but all of that has contributed so much to my personal growth and my business growth. Just going through that process, and I call it with my girls, right? With, as you mentioned, with the community that will challenge you. And talking about community, I know that you are one of those persons or people that have a loving heart, that we are not all about let's live a lavish life, which is nothing wrong with living right like that. However, you have done other things to pay it back to the community, build other communities. Tell me about how you using your time, your resources to influence the world, to invest with impact.
Mm. I think, again, right back to that, you get two arms for a reason. That yes, it's fun to pull yourself up and see those results, but it's so much more inspiring in such a different way when you get to breathe life into someone who then goes and does things in a really tremendous way. Things that I do that really work in that vein. One, getting to serve as leader at GoBundance Women. It's all of the things in life. Yes, it's about financial freedom, but also it's those relationships in your body and giving back in a way that feels awesome and going on adventures. I forgot to have adventures until I was having held accountable in terms of what I wanted to do. I also have the opportunity to serve as a high school volleyball coach to a bunch of freshmen. My bonus daughter's a freshman, and then 19 other kids. I always have her pull up Snapchat, and I read them a motivational quote every single day. I don't know that kids are having a lot of chance to think about the conversation that's happening in their heads in terms of how they're showing up. That has been tremendous. And the thing that bought me a level of freedom to be able to lean into this was buying apartment buildings. And I think that, democratizing that, it's not harder. It's just a little more. You just need to know what you're looking at and get really clear on where you're headed. That maybe you don't need to spend $30,000 with a guru on education to learn the things you need to learn. So I've been able to help about 150 people serving as mentor in buying small multis. So I just packaged that up in a way, the things that I've seen work, and we're rolling that out in a, hopefully approachable price so that people can make the decision to chase small multis instead of needing to be right 300 times with single family.
Yeah, so now that you mentioned that, I know that you have a program coming very soon, and I think that people will love to hear like how they can connect with you to find out more about this specific program on multifamily.
Yeah. So my website, mandymcallister.com, there's actually a link to a webinar that is the first of the modules for the program. I say it 1,000 times, and if you spend enough time around me, you'll realize I say it all the time that you can't hit a fuzzy target. It's this idea of focus. That if you want to get anything done all the way, you just get focused on one thing, apply your limiting factors, and then you can reverse engineer the path. It's like Google Maps, right? Like I live in Chicago. If I want to go to LA or New York, I can go to both places, but I can't go to both places at the same time. So you just got to pick one, run straight after it, and you're going to be far more likely to hit that target. So the program is a series of questions, a series of modules of things that you need to learn that are a little bit different in commercial real estate that will help you apply those limiting factors and make those decisions so that you can be the person that says, I want a sixplex brick building, Omaha, Nebraska, these 3 zip codes. Because if you can get that clear, you're going to find 3 of them and buy one. But if you're the person who comes to multifamily that you just want a deal, I just want a deal, I'll take any deal, you're going to find nothing because you don't know what you're looking for, right? So the course is designed to help you make those decisions.
Well, making decisions and choices, you mentioned those two things that are very critical, and you mentioned focus too. I have a question for you. What has been the toughest lessons you have learned in life as a woman to get where you are today?
Well, the toughest lessons I've learned in life, I think, have nothing to do with being a woman. One kind of reframe on that. You and I both, I mean, how many times have you been asked to speak on something because it's, oh, we need a multifamily female. Who's a
Yep.
oh, we got Jen, we got Mandy, you guys talk about being girls buying apartments, right? Well, my choice of how to look at that isn't like, oh, I look like it. I don't look like everybody else that does this. That's so scary. They're not going to trust me. They're not. No, I look different. So you listen to me. Like I get a chance to be on more stages than a bunch of dudes who are equally as smart as me, if not more smart than me in this. But because I look different, I get to use it as a competitive advantage. So it's up to you to look at the thing to decide, is it something holding you back or is it something you could use to your advantage? You know?
Yes, yes, I love it. Thank you. Because I asked this question to a couple of guys, and one day I mentioned, yes, women have an unfair advantage against you guys. And they look at me like, no, but what about all of these issues? It's like, yeah, we deal with them and we talk about them. But in reality, women are better investors, and the statistics show, yes, we tend to be a little bit more slow in the process. And when I call it slow, we do our due diligence. We take the time to learn. And not only that, we really know our thing. And I love when my partners, male partners, they told me, no, we love having women in our business because you ladies know what you're doing. You really learn what you're doing. And I'm very passionate about that. So thank you for pointing that out, because sometimes for me, I get a little bit frustrated when people come to me and say, well, you're a woman. How do you deal with the most basic fundamental things? And I'm like, is that an issue? Right. And I think that that approach, as you mentioned, of coming like, yes, I have female energy, whatever that means to you, but it doesn't make me less or more smart. There's going to be some other parts that they will think that we're not, but for them,
Right.
I will use it on my favor. And I love that. I think as women, we understand, and for me personally, it's so easy to find that balance between female and male energy to get deals done. And for
Absolutely.
those, yes, yes. And for those males that sometimes it's hard for them to work with women, I just bring a male. I'm like, I'm not gonna change the world right now, but I'm gonna show you what we can do. And hopefully in the journey, you will learn. Right.
I
And yeah.
Yeah, the absolutely. I been mansplained? Sure. I've been mansplained a time or two in my life, but I bought a business and a car wash building with my husband, and I've done a lot more investing than him. But do they ask him questions more frequently than me? Sure, they sure do. No big deal. Like I like being an underdog. One thing I'll say about this feminine masculine energy thing, I think that is a much easier thing to balance in business. The thing I've had to be really cognizant of is, go get stuff done. Energy is a masculine energy. Remembering to relax and, do more being than doing, is something that I forget, which has benefited my personal relationships, which is something my girls at GoBundance have really challenged me on. So understanding that balance in all of the parts of life is important.
Yes, yes, I love how you laid that out. It's that challenge of finding the proper balance, when to use what energy to enhance our relationships, to get things done. So I can appreciate that, and I have experienced that very often too. So, well, Mandy, I have one more question for you. For those people out there considering, I want to invest in real estate or I want to scale up. I think that the scale up, it's been the most challenging for a lot of people. There are many people teaching how to start investing in real estate. So let's say that for people who want to scale up, what will be your advice today?
This is what I've done to scale up every single time. To go from zero to that fourplex, to go from the fourplex into the 53 unit and above. Every single time I apply this idea of what is the absolute worst case scenario. I don't want to think through the 347 gonna happen problems, because if you're signing up to be a property investor or an entrepreneur, you are signing up to solve problems. Understand that there will be problems, but if you can really get your brain behind what is the absolute worst case scenario. So when buying that 53 unit, I realized, okay, we're in the middle of COVID. Maybe we're not even going to be able to pay the note and we're going to have to give back the property. That is the absolute worst case scenario. Then how do I get comfortable with that? Oh, who has at risk jobs? What percentage of people can I have not paying their rent and still pay that note? Right. So, how do you figure out the actual worst case scenario and do the math or figure out the truth to get comfortable with that being a possibility and mitigate all those risks? So, Stoic philosophy approach.
That's very well said. Well, with that being said, I hope that everyone catch Mandy's spark, enjoy her presentation or her conversations, and at the end or in the description, I will be putting her information so you can sign up.
Jen, thank you for this. So much fun.